A simple life in a simple town. From a simple family. My mother was a very good watercolor artist, and my father was a wicked illustrator. Art was always something I enjoyed. My parents saw that early in me and sent me to study with a private teacher for a number of years. The portfolio that he helped me develop gained me admittance to the then Caldwell College for Women. Although my skill level in art was not as advanced as some of the other students, Sister Gerardine saw something in me that allowed me to start my fall semester in 1971 in the liberal arts program with a major in art. Sister's energy and zest for the various classes she taught and the professors in her art department created a chemistry that was magic. My introduction to so many more avenues to express art was a game changer for me. Photography, Chinese calligraphy, contemporary painting, art and aesthetics, lettering, and art and archaeology study in Mexico are all avenues that changed my life. Several of us went to Sister to inquire about a BFA or Bachelor of Fine Arts program when we were in our sophomore year. By junior year, we were in the throes of coursework necessary for that degree that Sister had implemented. Armed with the Bachelor of Fine Arts degree and the 4-year Caldwell College experience, I was prepared for the road that leads me to where I am today. I always had my eye on a career in window display, especially for a major department store. Within a month of graduation, I was working in a local department store. Within a year, I had an opportunity to go to my first major store, Bloomingdale's in Short Hills. But after 3 years of suburbia and more retail experience, I was looking to New York City to fulfill my bigger goal. Macy's New York would see me rise to visual merchandising manager, not called display anymore. As much as I had wanted to be doing the windows for them, I would be selected to design and install the main floor for Christmas in New York. This included the trend-setting arcade. I was one of the first to use music as part of visual presentation in that area, and the rest is history for all retail now. Looking to move up the career ladder, I had another opportunity to move to Bloomingdale's, New York, on 3rd Avenue on the Upper East Side. More experience, but different than Macy's. After 3 years there, I was selected to be part of an elite visual team at the new and very exclusive Polo Ralph Lauren flagship store on 72nd and Madison. We each had a specialty floor to design for. And finally, I was able to do award-winning windows in New York City. My next career adventure brought me back to New Jersey into the world of museum exhibition design. I spent 11 years with Morris Museum, the 3rd largest in the state, where I presented over 200 major exhibitions for them. My time in Mexico with Sister Gerardine visiting the Museum of Anthropology, that was brand new at the time, had influenced my exhibit design work most significantly. I had the opportunity to do many noteworthy retrospectives of New Jersey artists, such as Adolph Conrad, Harry Devlin, and Albert Green. I designed the Etruscan Legacy of a Lost Civilization, Treasures from the Vatican Museum exhibition. And many other blockbuster exhibits like Dinosaurs of the Deep, Backyard Monsters, and Star Trek Federation Science. Art, history, costumes and textiles, dolls and toys, geology, paleontology, native cultures were all part of my exhibit designs for the Morris Museum. I've also designed exhibits for the counties of Union, Morris, Tiffany's Archives, Liberty Hall, Kane University, Morristown Memorial Hospital, and Museum of Early Trades and Crafts. While in retail visual design and museum exhibition design, I had been asked if I could design flowers for our church. 38 years and a few roses later, both my sister Anne, also a Caldwell graduate, and I have designed liturgical environments for over half a dozen churches in the Central Jersey area, done hundreds of weddings, and designed the nationally televised ordination and installation of the 5th Bishop of Metuchen Diocese. One of the pastors for whom I had done extensive floral work asked if I could select new paint colors for the interior of his church. Not only were colors involved, but gilding and side altar shrine design as well. This is how I started my next and most rewarding design work. Shortly after that church interior, I was asked to do a full renovation of a church in the Round. St. Mary's, Stony Hill, and Watchung had been designed by an architect who had never designed a church before. This was a late 1960s build, and the entire place was brown. It now has 10 plate glass doors to allow for daylight to flood the pale blue narthex, blue and taupe 24 by 24 Italian tiles in the narthex floor that lead to an oatmeal carpeted nave and ivory cruciform sanctuary, a shrine for Mary, and new paint colors were all part of this renovation. St. Charles Borromeo in Skillman approached me immediately after the St. Mary's renovation to work on their 25,000 square foot parish center addition. This addition was to house religious education, youth ministry, meeting rooms, a library, several gathering spaces, and a main hall to seat 350 with a full catering kitchen. I was to select all the post-construction finishes that being the type of floors, wall colors, furniture, and art. Over the years, I have consulted on many more liturgical elements at St. Charles, including designing the visual aspects of the pipe organ in the sanctuary. St. Joseph Church in North Plainfield is a 1910 Richardson Romanesque structure that was in need of interior attention after its 1972 renovation. Fortunately, I had wonderful black and white photos of what the architect Joseph A. Jackson had in mind when he designed the structure. I've returned the interior to its former grandeur along with the construction code upgrades and ADA compliance. The hope is to do more marble restoration on the high altar in the year ahead, along with an extensive exterior restoration. St. Thomas the Apostle Church in Old Bridge is a mid-century contemporary that had seen no less than 4 renovations in its time. Carpeted, wallpapered, and in need of additional seating, I was determined to make this space sacred. The focal point in the church is a beautifully carved linden wood mural of St. Thomas before the risen Christ. There were several varieties of wood in addition to the mural competing visually with each other. I selected a neutral color palette centered around the stone cladding under the mural walls, the tabernacle niche, the entry to the building, and the connecting hall to the main nave. The new tiles blended with my stone selection, as did all the painted surfaces. New flexible seating was added, and construction codes were met with aisle width and ADA seating. Corpus Christi Roman Catholic Church in South River is the only colonial revival church in the Metuchen Diocese. It has seen no less than 5 renovations. I reconfigured its sanctuary back to the original architectural design by Clement W. Fairweather and included an 1840s carved oak high altar from a convent in Belgium. The badly damaged terrazzo floors were reconditioned, new nailers and some pews reconfigured, and these were all done for construction code updating and ADA seating. New decorative chandeliers were added, and the stained glass window light boxes were relocated. Presentation of Our Lord in Upper Saddle River asked me to redesign their sanctuary as part of their $8 million addition and renovation of their existing church. Their existing tabernacle was upgraded with a new stand and cladding on all sides for a full 360-degree viewing. The ambo echoed the existing altar, and the altar was updated so all 3 pieces match. The sanctuary wall baffles mask the ADA ramp, utilities, organ speakers, and sacristy doors. The wood baffles go from the stone wall ledge to the ceiling, with the highest point being at 35 feet. Sacred Heart Chapel at Immaculate Heart of Mary in Scotch Plains is a separate building attached to a new rectory. The main chapel seats 60, and the Adoration Chapel adjacent to it seats 12. Only 1 tabernacle is allowed per building, so to make this work in this instance, I designed a stained glass window that divides the Adoration Chapel from the main chapel for the tabernacle. The glass is opaque and has both the image of the Immaculate Heart of Mary and Sacred Heart incorporated into it. The main chapel is simple and timeless as the community wanted, using stone, glass, tile, and wood to complete the project. The statuary, Stations of the Cross, tabernacle doors, and altar are all from various Pennsylvania churches that had closed and were available to design into this new space. The adoration altar was from a Newark Diocese church and was refinished to match the new adoration space. Not all my projects are full renovations. Some are just a relocation of a tabernacle, or delivery of a baptismal font, or statue repair. Some of these included Nativity of Our Lord in Monroe Township that was a full design for a potential renovation.
Good morning, Meg, architect of this magnificent venue. You can tell us a little bit about how it came about. How did you get involved?
I was here on campus for a meeting at night, and I heard through the grapevine at the meeting that they were thinking about relocating the Mother Joseph Residence Hall Chapel to the central section of the campus over here in Student Center area. So I came over and peered into the window after the meeting was over to see where it was going to be, because they said, oh, it's in the sports complex. And I looked through these glass windows, and here it is, a big empty vanilla box, just block walls, kind of unattractive. It used to be the bookstore.
It was the bookstore, correct.
It was the bookstore, yes, correct. So I looked at it and I thought, interesting. And on my drive home, which is about 25 miles, I had this vision that came in my head of exactly what I was thinking would look great in the space. I don't know why, it just did. And I have this, so when I got home, I scribbled this in my book. And that's how, all my things kind of started as a scribble a little bit. And that's what I came up with. And then I wrote notes to myself and I said, okay, fine. And I didn't think much more about it until I heard that there was actually a formal search for a liturgical designer for the space. And I put my 2 cents in, put my hat in the arena. And I didn't hear for a while, didn't hear for a long time actually. And out of the blue, I got a phone call from the president at the time, in the middle of July. Said, Meg, we've decided we want to use you as our designer for the chapel. So I was delighted, of course, needless to say, a little bit scared, but it was all good. And met with everybody a few days later and went through all my design elements about what I thought. And they said, fine, go ahead, let's develop this more. And that's what we did. For me, as a designer, a lot of times I see everything finished in my head. And this room I saw basically finished in my head. So I designed backwards from that for the elements and the things that I need, and brought all the samples in, and everybody saw everything, and they said, go. Now we have just one problem. I said, what's that? Well, could you be the project manager for this too? So I would wind up being the project manager. As I am on a lot of my jobs, I usually am the project manager. No, I'm not an architect. People ask me that question. I'm an interior designer, but I know enough about construction, having been in a construction family for years. I can figure it out for sure. And I have a great team of people I work with.
What was your objective? I mean, it's sacred space, and you actually did something that most people wouldn't do, putting the altar in the corner like that. What is your design objective at the beginning when you saw it in your head? What were you thinking?
That this is going to be a focal point. I had always thought that the tabernacle should be in that corner because I have the stone walls in the corner, and I thought it would be a perfect apex, a kind of an ascendancy for where the tabernacle would be, and that would be a focus for me. I also had designed at one point stained glass for these windows, more not figural, not like what we have here or out in the entryway, but more of an amorphic design that would kind of take your eye away from outside and bring you to God in the tabernacle.
So all of the elements, it's safe to say, everything in this chapel amplifies the focal point, which is the altar. What did you bring from I had been in the dorm many times for Mass, and sections of it were beautiful, but did you bring things from the dorm to include here?
That was one of the things. Bringing pieces from the dorm chapel was paramount to the administration here at the time. I needed to go, I went over there many times and looked to see what we had. And I knew the stained glass windows were of utmost paramount importance to bring here because Sister Julia Marie had designed them. They're magnificent, and stained glass it's expensive, it's hard to get, it's hard to do, all of those things, and that was really one of the focal points that I wanted to use here in this space. And we will look at that a little bit more later. It's the whole entry to this chapel is the stained glass. And I said that to everyone at the time when I had to propose this to them, that I thought it was most important because this is a unique chapel. It's within another building. Most chapels are freestanding on all locations, campuses, and for other churches and stuff, small chapels are usually freestanding. In this particular instance, it's included in another building and happens to be the sports complex here. And I said to them flat out, I said, do you want God or you want basketball? When you walk in the door, you have to know where you are. And it's really, really paramount and important to me if I were a visitor or a student or faculty or anybody who comes from the community, because the wider community worships here as well, that you have to know where God is and where the chapel is. And I felt it was important for me to relocate the the stained glass, if you will, out front. And the out front facade of this chapel was as much work as it was in here, because there were 8 different trades who had to accomplish what the entry was for the impact and the power, so that when you walk in this building, you know where the chapel is. So the great Dominican saints are out front, and then I wanted to bring the Blessed Virgin Mary in here as well as the Sacred Heart, because there were funny windows in this space that are, I can't do anything with the windows because it's part of the outer cladding of this building and structure. I was not about to start to do any of that kind of crazy renovation, restoration kind of work. So it was important for me to echo what was outside with the stained glass with the great Dominican saints, and to bring the Sacred Heart here and the Blessed Virgin Mary, and to do the ironwork in here to mask those windows, but give it more of that feel, so you're bringing outside, inside at the same time.
I want to stay for a minute on the entry because it is spectacular. And there's something special about it because of the lighting. Stained glass you would put against outside light. Here, as you said, you're indoor. So what did you do?
That was a bit of a challenge for us. We reconfigured some of what was already the structure here as far as entryways, because that was a fire regulation we had to comply with. So it worked out that I was able to put 4 Dominican saints on one side and 2 on the other. The doorway is where it was. We did some finagling with that. But we built a knee wall to accommodate the stained glass and all the ironwork, but behind it, I had researched all these LED systems that are behind the wall, behind the knee wall, and basically they are refracted light. So it's not light that's shining through the glass, it refracts to the white wall and bounces through to the other side. And then the ironwork was open. That's what's holding everything, because there are these frames that hold the stained glass in place. Glass goes into a frame, then the ironwork goes around that to hold everything in place, and it's all stabilized and what have you. The ironwork is open. And I thought, well, this isn't going to do with there are youth around. You never quite know what youth is going to do.
You don't know.
So we did the wonderful red German glass behind that, and that runs all behind the ironwork. And there's so much red that Sister Julia used in hers, and the college colors are red and gold. So it was appropriate for me to bring the red forward in the front, but it's refracted LED lighting that lights the entire thing, both sides. It's on timers so that when this building opens in the morning, the lights come on, and at night when it closes, they go off. We left the top is open. If you look at the design element on the top where the iron is open, that's the heating and cooling systems for this whole structure. So I had to leave that open so that I could manage heating and cooling here as well.
Well, it's a magnificent entry, and when you do come in, I think one of the striking elements is the natural stone, the natural floor. Are those elements that you chose specifically from other projects, or did you want this eternity in stone?
Well, all my projects that I work on, I really try to attain a natural feel for each space, because I think that designers from back in the day, and I've looked at enough of it to know, really were designing from their era. And a lot of times you'll walk into a church and say, oh, this is 1960s, oh, this is the 70s, this is from the 50s. It's very recognizable because of what they've done as far as design is concerned. And my focus for me as a designer for all of my buildings, unless it's a period church, I really want to try to make it timeless, so that generations to come can come and it's not locked in a time zone. So to pick neutral stone, for instance, the floor in here is from Italy. The pattern that I selected for this floor is the same pattern that's in Winchester Cathedral in England, which I adore.
What kind of a stone is that?
This is porcelain.
Okay.
It's all porcelain. Mm-hmm. The stone for the walls here is a combination of a couple kinds of stones that are all quarried out of Connecticut. When I build a church, I try to work with American-made products. And this is a dry stack. Most of the times you'll see stone that has a mortar joint in it. This is all dry stack. It's neater, it's cleaner, it gives you a nicer palette than seeing lines, because once you start running grout lines, you get lines, and your eye goes to those lines, and I don't want you to necessarily do that.
Well, I think the irregularity here brings out the natural stone more than if you had it stacked normally and grouted.
Right.
It's kind of a magnificent statement all around.
It's a combination of types of stones as well. I also asked my stone setter if you'll see on the walls there's various stones that poke out.
They poke out, yes.
And I had that done specifically because I felt that if campus ministry here decided at some point that they wanted to do a candlelight service, a Vesper service, something to that nature, you can actually put little candle cups on here to light the walls. And I think that would be quite elegant and lovely if they wanted to do a service that included that.
Striking. If we go toward the liturgy, I note right away the Stations of the Cross. They are magnificent. Can you speak about those for a little bit?
Sure. The Stations of the Cross were one of the elements that was really critical, that they come from Mother Joseph Chapel to here. But the problem was with that, after I had studied them for a while, they're huge. They were very big. They were probably 2 foot by 18, 20 inches wide. And the way they were constructed, they were made in Italy, I think. But they were never meant to be taken out of the old chapel and brought here because of the way they were set into the wall. And the back of it had one kind of marble that was put on the back that set into the actual mortar. And then the green empress, which is around each of the carved figures, was the placard on it, and it had gilding and gold leaf work, and it had the words of each station, like Jesus falls the 3rd time. And then, of course, the figures are all carved in white Carrara. They must have weighed, each one, 50 pounds. And when I went to the administration, I said, they weigh 50 pounds apiece. These are super heavy, they're really big. I think we need to really readdress this. Let me explore what I want to do with this. So I took them to my marble men. I have 2 marble and stone men that I do work with. So what we tried first was to take the backs off. Well, no, not happening. Because once we got the back off of the other marble, we realized there were brass screws going into the back of the Carrara and the Empress, which is going to create a bigger problem that we might break one of these, and we didn't want to do that. So we came up with another plan to let's get the back off. So they had to go on a big bridge saw. They had to cut the backs off, and they had to set it so that they could run it to keep cutting to get this off, so they can knock it all off. And then we decided we would cut the Green Empress tight to the station's figures. The mahogany panels that they're recessed in were done on a CNC machine. But the outline of the panel is the same outline as the stained glass windows. So if you look at the windows of what they had been and what Sister had done and how that line goes, that's the same outline. So I wanted to bring the outline of the Stations of the Cross with the glass together. So I wanted to put those two so I can marry those two designs so that it's not yet another element in the space. I wanted it to be similar. Probably didn't see that before, did you?
I didn't take note of, well, I noted the apex on the frame, but I didn't note that it emulated the stained glass. But the whole thing works beautifully together. I mean, the green marble I'm used to in Italy is a serpentine marble. It's a magnificent green, and it goes well with the stone. I mean, there's nothing that you could speak of outside of this magnificent marble on stone.
Also with the Stations of the Cross, we decided that it wasn't really necessary to have the name of underneath each one, because if people are here praying the Stations, they're probably praying from a book or if someone's leading. So it's really not necessary to have Jesus falls the third time, Jesus died, that kind of thing. So we eliminated that. But what I wanted to do was to incorporate Sister Geraldine into the Stations of the Cross. I always admired her lettering and her numerals and how she does all of that. It's just remarkable to me. It's beautiful. So I called her up and I said, Sister, can you, this is what I want to do. Would you mind doing the numerals for the Stations of the Cross? And she said, well, it's just numbers, Meg. I said, yes, Sister, I know, but could you do your numbers for me?
Right.
I'm telling you, it was the next day. She's calling me, Meg, I have them done. You want to come get them? Okay, Sister, I will. So I came up and I picked these up, and she said, I did two sizes. I don't know what size you need. Here's 1 inch. This is 2 inch. Go ahead. These are yours. I'm like, okay, fine. So we transferred them over. And then what I had decided to do, did we want to hand carve them? Because hand carving her numerals is really interesting, and you get the little nuances. Or do we want to run it through a CNC machine?
CNC, describe that.
CNC machine is a computer program that you load into the wood machine, and it's going to carve it all out for you, and it will be the same image over and over and over and over again.
Okay.
So we made both. We did samples of each in raw mahogany, as these are, because we wanted to use mahogany for the main altar. So
hardest
wood, the best wood. It's beautiful. Right. Let's use mahogany. So we decided we'll run samples, and I brought them to Sister to see. And I said, what do you think, Sister? And she said, well, I don't know. And then she stood there for a minute and she said, you know, I don't mind the CNC machine because they're perfect, and I think I would rather them be perfect. So there we go. So that's what we did, and we set them on top of each apex, which is perfect for each one over top. And then I decided that on the main altar in Mother Joseph, on the main lintel, were crosses in each corner. I said, let's do that cross again on the corner, because you need a cross on every one of your stations. There's always a cross. You're not praying to the image, you're usually praying to the cross. And the ones that were over in Mother Joseph were not the most attractive, so I decided let's carve this in too. If CNC is going to do it, let's put them all the same and we'll do it the same.
Now, coming to the altar, how did you design the altar and the tabernacle stand? What about that? The position and that's also from the Mother Joseph?
The tabernacle stand was something that I really wanted to take all the elements from Mother Joseph Chapel and bring parts here. The main high altar had been taken apart in pieces because it was one of those altars that big, but it's all pieces of marble. You can't carve it out of that. It's cost prohibitive. So it was all taken apart in pieces, and I went over to my stone guys and we looked at every part and piece that had come off of it, and there were a lot. There were a lot of elements. There was a reredos behind the main altar that had mosaics inlaid into it. There were other parts that were throughout the chapel. There used to be 2 grottos on either side. There was a Marian one, and the tabernacle, the original tabernacle to the dorm, was there. There's a problem with that tabernacle, and I was told by the folks who were working on this with me, don't use that. We're going to have to get rid of it. There's a problem with it. Okay, fine. Can we get a new one? By all means, I'd love to get you a new one. But the nice thing was I was able to use almost every single piece of marble that was in the Mother Joseph Residence Hall here. So part of the main lintel was taken off. It's 3 inches thick, weighs a ton. We figured it was about 600 pounds when we moved it out
Wow.
of the dorm, up the steps, onto the trucks to go back to the marble shop. So I worked with them on getting that out and what we were going to do in sizes and dimensions and everything. And because this chapel is done with flexible seating, I wanted to be able to make the altar flexible if possible. So what I did with my design was I used a piece of the the lintel. We cut it down, but if we cut it, because there's an altar stone in the center, if I cut both ends, I would lose my crosses. So I decided to keep the one end, keep where everything was, and then we looked at everything and we're like, I don't know. So we cut everything off. I brought it to my other stone man. He picked it up with his crane, brought it to his shop. He's carved the new crosses in it, and they're the identical ones that was in the original lintel.
Excellent.
So we've got that carved back in.
Excellent.
The altar stone is still in place. We never took that out. We didn't move it. We don't know who's in there. We don't know what relics they are.
That's what I was going to ask. Out of curiosity, the stone relic, the relic is still there in place.
It's still there.
Yeah.
We never moved it. We didn't
Yeah.
take it out. We don't know who
Yeah.
it is. There's no archive that says who
Really?
it is.
That's
No,
strange.
nobody
Usually-
knows.
Yeah,
who
I
was
know.
in there.
I asked once on that, and no one knows. It's there somewhere.
It is. So
It's
what I
there
had
somewhere.
decided to do was that my altar base was going to echo the ambo. I wanted to make that out of the mahogany as well, because we were using mahogany for the altar. You use your best materials for God, of course. And this is where I really thought it would be important to save the mosaics that were on the reredos, because the reredos behind the main altar went up the back and then came out. You know, it was just this lovely, lovely, lovely mosaics. When they took them down, one broke. That's okay, because my marble men are geniuses.
Knew what to do.
They
Right.
do. So
Exactly.
my gentleman who builds for me, he has done wooden altars for me. He's done ambos. He's done carved chairs. He's fabulous. We decided we would do a shape that was similar to the ambo, and that we were going to inset the mosaic front and back so that you could see it from both sides.
Beautiful.
And I wanted to make it so it could be movable. Now, my eyes tell you it's quite heavy, but we could move it if we wanted
If
to
you had to move
reorient
it,
the
right,
space.
right.
So the fact that we have flexible seating, if we wanted to reorient the room for some reason, you could. We can move the altar. It's got neoprene glides underneath it, so it would be interesting to move. Let's say that. It'd be interesting to move. So Scott did a fantastic job on that, and he did the inlay of the wheat and the grapes, which was the mosaic. We didn't lose any parts of that, front and back. And the structure inside is quite unique, how we had to build it so that we could actually hold it. Yes, it's glued, and it could be reversible if you wanted to take them out for some reason, but it's all secure in there, and there's no worry about that. So, and then because on both sides of the wheat and grape mosaic is also the creamy marfil, it's perfect to have that top be
Yes,
the
it
creamy
is. It's a
marfil of
perfect.
that lintel.
The color is perfect. The other thing which is interesting is the crucifix, because you chose not to have a stationary crucifix.
That was an interesting scenario. The crucifix is original, and that was set in the middle of the reredos in the chapel. But because of where we were in this space, I ran across a lot of different things that were challenges in this space because of what was our ceiling, what was happening here. We thought about putting the crucifix there, but then because of its size, it was going to conflict a little bit with visual, and because of the way the ceiling is configured, if you walked in the door, you would only see part of the crucifix. So we thought that, and I checked in with some folks on that as far as liturgical correctness, that as long as it's in the space, it's here. Plus, we also are using Sister Geraldine's processional crucifix. So the fact that that's right there in the sanctuary space, it's very special that it still carries from the chapel to here, and that our crucifix that was in the dorm is here. It's been refurbished. On the ends of that crucifix, it emulates the design of the Stations of the Cross with the same apex, and I had that completely redone, so that's here.
No, it's a magnificent piece. And actually, it's during the day. Of course, it's lit beautifully from natural light. Let's go to light, because you have two fabulously interesting pieces in this chapel. The lighting itself and the panel lighting. Panel lighting we'll do after. My most favorite, the cosmos. Tell us about your lighting in the area of the altar.
The lighting in the area space I chose specifically because I did research on St. Dominic, and I was pleasantly surprised to find out that St. Dominic is a patron saint of astronomers. And they remind me of the armillary spheres and the heavens and the cosmos, and I thought this would be a nice element to put within this space, and to add that beautiful orb in there that can be lit or not lit. It's on dimmers, so at night it's beautiful in here. It illuminates the altar area and the tabernacle space. It's a nice thing if you're going to set the lighting for prayer, that just that can be put on and nothing else can be on. So I really was excited about finding these and tipping my hat back to St. Dominic.
Anybody that comes in and looks up, of course, is surprised and delighted with the cosmos. St. Dominic, at his baptism, his mother saw a star on his chest. And from there emulated the idea of stars around him and, of course, the astronomy.
Well, Sister Julia Marie's windows, every one of them has a star over top of each saint, as well as, the Blessed Virgin Mary and our Sacred Heart. And I said, you know what, I'm going to bring all those elements together. And because I am in a building within a building, I had serious restrictions in the ceiling in the space. Now, in that is the fluorescent lighting, which was a problem. So I researched more. We took out all the fluorescents. This is all LED in here.
Wow.
Everything is LED. But then the problem was going to be, okay, what do I do with this lighting? Because it was something that was bothering me from the very, very beginning when I first looked through the glass windows to see about this space. What am I doing with this fluorescent? Not my favorite lighting source, of course. There's a company that makes these big slides. They're actually like a big slide. It's a gel. They had daylight ones, which I initially thought of right out of the gate. And I thought, oh, that would be fabulous. It would be opening to the heavens. And I'm like, but no. If you're in here at night, which I'm suspecting most students are going to be here at night, most services are going to be at night, because the campus operates in fall, winter, and spring. Summertime is going to be not as much. So I said, you know what, let me see if they have, and I was very fortunate that they had night sky. So I decided to do a variety of the night sky films that are here. So it's the galaxies, the cosmos, various star patterns that are mixed and matched throughout, so that if you are sitting here at night and it is dark and these are just on, you feel like you're sitting outside. And it harkens back to Genesis, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. So
you have
let's
the
be
biblical,
here.
You have the biblical statement right there as you're gazing at it. And it's a magnificent thing, because you are meditating whether you like it or not once you start looking, because it commands your attention. So it's a beautiful thing. Speak about the acoustics.
It's lively in here to a degree because of the stone floors and the flat walls, but there is a diffusing that happens because of the raw texture of my stone. The seating is flexible. We can fit 125 people here. Cushion seats, of course, and I think that absorbs some of our sound in here. And again, as I echoed about the ceiling, with a special acoustic ceiling that I put in, it's one of the heaviest acoustics that's available to stop other sound. So when you do, and we blanketed above that with other acoustical material, so we tried everything we could to really make this be a quiet, sacred space. But again, I'm very heartened to see people sitting here, or people quietly praying, right, or young men here, which really always moves me, that there are young men here praying.
Well, I've also heard the choir here many times. We've had different masses here, etc. And the sound is beautiful. So it isn't that no matter where you are in the chapel, you have a vibrant sound, to me. So that's a beautiful thing. Usually it's from this vantage point where they sing.
One of the other pieces that we brought from Mother Joseph Residence Hall Chapel was the statues of St. Joseph and the Blessed Mother. Mary, of course, was in the main chapel to the right-hand side in one of the niches. St. Joseph stood outside on your way down the steps. We had special crates made, and they were all wrapped and put together and put in the crates, and then I had a company who moves nothing but art to here. So they brought it across campus and brought it here. But they called me the day of the move and said, can you come over right now? We have a problem. So, of course, I ran over to the chapel to look. Mary had been boxed. She had been taken out of the chapel and put in one of the old confessionals, and she had been boxed up. They unwrapped her to see her condition before they moved it and found that her hand was broken off and her fingers were broken.
Oh, dear.
Which happens a lot of times with statuary.
Of
Fingers
course.
are always broken, hands are broken,
Even
her
heads,
wrists,
right.
heads come off, all that.
Right.
Her hand was broken. I said, just leave it right there. I photographed it. We wrapped her up. We got everybody moved over to here, which was quite a move that day. Quite a move to put Joseph in place, to put Mary in place. And fortunately for me, again, my stone man, who's a genius, who did our stations, who did my tabernacle stand, who was here that day doing work with me. We have a little new holy water font in the front. He was busy epoxying that together because it came in two pieces and it was from a church in Western Pennsylvania. We had selected that because, again, it's also the green empress to match our green in here. He was making it one unit as opposed to two parts. I said, Root, can you fix this? He said, I can fix anything. I said, I know you can. This is why I'm asking you to do this. So he was able to fix Mary's hands, and they look great. Also, what Mary and Joseph are standing on are the original niche bases that where Mary stood and where the tabernacle stood. The original bottoms, they're so beautifully carved. Why would I want to throw those away? And of course, they sit over top of mahogany to tie the mahogany together to the space. So all my wood finishes match, so there's nothing out of place here. Our ambo was custom. That was made by one of the same man who did my base for my altar. He's used a selection of mahogany and black ebony and some burl wood on that piece. And my ambo resembles an open book.
Yes, it does.
And since that's where we proclaim from the book, I've always wanted to make this an open book. Now, this is not a new design for me. I've done this before. And I love this ambo. It's been very serviceable in other places where I have made it. But Scott made it custom for here. And it has the Dominican shield, marquetry set in the front. And it has shelving behind for if you have other books, you have your paper, your homily, all of that. But it gives you plenty of space from which to speak from or to proclaim from or to homilize from. And you have lots of space within that open book look that you can just slide your sacramentary over and your homilies right there. So you have plenty of room. There's not too much jostling of paperwork.
No, I actually noticed the book, the gospel on top, well able to be read without problems, and lots of space if you have a homily or whatever that you want to have up there also. No, it works beautifully.
Now I want to talk about the doors a little bit. One of my other things that I have always done in a lot of my churches are total glass. It allows for light, it allows for transparency, so you can look in, if the service is going on, you can kind of sneak in. But it's also, it gives you another place for art, if you will. And in this particular instance, I again went back to Sister Geraldine and said, would you like to design something for me? And she said, yes, let me think about it. And again, 2 days later, she's back at it and she says, you can come over and get this from me. I have it all ready for you. And basically, she hearkened back to the 4 Dominican pillars. So when the doors were ready to go, we brought them to a sandblaster because they're tempered. They're tempered, and sandblasting's a little tricky when you have a tempered door. And the way the hardware is cast with the door at the same time, it's part of how that has to be for fire code regulations. It has nothing to do with me or personal preference or what it looks like. It has to be done where the glass is tempered and done at the same time when they do the hardware. So we had to take the full door to the blaster, and then I did 2 sides, the exact placement of where everything was to be on those doors. And it was Sister's Dominican pillars, And then there's the tongues of flame. There are a couple, 2 tongues on the door. They're the Veritas Truth.
Yes,
Which is
well,
what
that's the motto.
we wanted to have on
Veritas.
there.
Well, we have an actual memory also of Sister Gerardine. I mean, she's everywhere on campus. She's certainly in this chapel also. And having been students of hers, it just seems natural.
It does. She's here and she'll be here with us forever.
She'll be here forever. What's your favorite part of this chapel? Is there a favorite part?
Probably the tabernacle and tabernacle stand. That whole tabernacle stand is made of all the parts and pieces that were left over from Mother Joseph. I'll go back to the altar top lintel. We cut both sides off to maintain the stone in the center. Both sides are now the top of the tabernacle stand. So I lost none of the original sacrificial lintel piece of the main altar. They're fused together. The green Empress marble was salvaged from the front of the main altar, which with the gilding and such. We were able to do 3 sides clean, and the back is a composite of other parts and pieces all put together to make that be that. But by the same token, the tabernacle and stand had to be higher than the main altar of sacrifice here. So we decided to raise it, but I didn't have enough green Empress. Green Empress was only cut to a certain size. You can't get it anymore, or that we wanted to. So the base of it we raised, and that's other parts from the main altar. And all that trim work that you see at the base, that is the carving, that was the sidebars of the original niches that were in the in the chapel itself, where Mary was and the other tabernacle are. We mitered all those together to make the base and put it all up high enough so we have that as a stand that runs 42 inches high.
Wow. The tabernacle is bronze?
Yes.
Bronze facing or all bronze?
The tabernacle piece itself was selected as a group from campus ministry. And I brought them several that I had pre-selected. Fortunately for me, they selected the one that I loved. And why I love that tabernacle is because it also has the wheat and the grapes.
Yes,
which
reflective
echoes,
of the mosaics. Right?
Correct.
Right.
It reflects the mosaics on the bottom of the altar and from the reredos mosaics. And I really wanted to use that. Now, the tabernacle itself had wooden sides. I think it had been partially inset someplace.
Yes.
So I have another metal shop that I work with that does incredible metal work for me. They've done several tabernacles for me, in fact, especially like tabernacles that have been inset, and the sides are kind of funky. They're just metal. So I decided on this one, we picked a beautiful bronze sheeting. So it's bronze sheeting that's been totally clad around that new piece. We had new locks done and
It
new
almost
parts
looks
and
like
pieces.
it's textured, you know?
It is. I selected that piece, the textured material for it, so that I would be able to make it look like it was always that way.
Very nice.
But it's a used tabernacle from 100 years ago from someplace else, and I thought, you know what?
Irreplaceable.
It matches for here, and that's what's nice, that if I can also use materials that are out there that have been abandoned, really, and bring them here, that they're going to live here forever.
It is a focal point, the focal point. So,
Well,
as it should be.
It's God's house.
As it should be.
It's God's house.
We have a little donor wall.
Oh.
That was a very special thing you did.
Well, the donor wall was actually, I have to say, conceived by the development office. And I said, you know, we could make this be more special if. And so what we had decided to do was to change the hardware out, not brass, but we went with black because it's very timeless. Black iron, like the black iron in here and outside. And then there are partitions in between each one of the panels. So I had asked, was there a stained glass kind of look that we could put there to emulate the stained glass that we've used throughout the space? And we've got plenty of space to add more donors.
Well, it's a great idea. If you go to any of the great churches in Europe, the basilicas, wherever, you always have donors. And in fact, you have donors with their names carved over the main altar. You go to Santa Maria Maggiore, for example, and you're looking at names from cardinals down. So it's not unusual. Here, it's a very, very beautiful thing to have also.
In case someone's wondering, it took me 8 months from start to finish. We were done in 8 months. We took the stained glass out of Mother Joseph Residence Hall in January, and we dedicated September.
Yes, I was here for the dedication. It's a magnificent thing. You've given us a tour that's unbelievable because you walk in and you're struck by the beauty of it. As a matter of fact, when the normal person walks in, their eyes don't know where to go. They do go to the altar, that's number one. They do go to the tabernacle, but they have to filter all over this stuff. It's a magnificent piece just to be in, the ambiance of the whole thing.
I also would want to say, too, the things that we brought from Mother Joseph, we were able to salvage all the candlesticks, which again are the green empress and the brass. There are 2 beautiful candelabra, one of which was broken, so I had that recast and done. So they use the candelabrum for when they do adoration. The original monstrance, which is gold-plated, was redone and brought here. All of the other accoutrement, the original sanctuary light stand is here, and the original credence table is here. Wow. Had that marble redone, and all the bronze redone on that as well. So it was a great blessing to be able to salvage as much as we could from that space. Basically, really what we left behind is the pews. We were able to save everything else that was there that was relevant to everyone, including the big crest outside. Now, that was also designed by Sister Julia Marie. It was carved by a gentleman who's gone now from Germany. I think he was an acquaintance of Sister Geraldine's, but it's the Holy Family. And that was always in the back of the church, back on the back wall, up really high. You really didn't notice it because the lighting in the old chapel wasn't the best. So we made that a focal point above the entryway when you come in. So when you look at the whole entry facade now, you see our 6 Dominican saints, the Holy Family greets you, and a brand new stained glass sign in German flash glass, back painted in gold, is the Sister Mary Dominic Tweedus Chapel name, which used to be just a blank transom, really. So we had that custom made as well.
Well, I have to thank you because it's not often that we get to talk to the architect and designer. We can talk to somebody who comes in as a guide, but this is a special thing. It's an honor to hear firsthand what your ideas were and how they came to fruition.
Thank you, Linda. Appreciate it very much. Thank you.